So I'm just going to kind of moderate things this morning, but I'm going to introduce Morgan and have her introduce herself to you. And welcome everybody who's watching on the web, staring directly into the camera at this point. So today, our first candidate for the Dean of Online and Faculty Development is Dr. Morgan Presley. She's a faculty professional developer for online and blended instruction at Drury, has a PhD from the University of Missouri in Learning, Teaching, and Curriculum, and a master's in biology from Missouri State. Dr. Presley is also a biology instructor at Drury and has been an adjunct faculty member at OTC in the Bioclinical Sciences Department. So please help me welcome Dr. Morgan Presley.
Thank you all for being here and taking your time out to come speak with me. As Mark mentioned, I have both bachelor's and master's degrees in biology, and I actually taught full-time here at OTC after my master's program. So I've taught in both a full-time and part-time capacity at OTC. And then realizing that I didn't know how to teach and knew that I wanted to be a teacher for my career, I decided to go off and get my PhD in learning, teaching, and curriculum with a specialization in college science teaching. And all of my research and professional experiences has been in faculty development. So I've worked with individual faculty on a variety of things, and then I've also designed and facilitated professional development programs for a large number of people, both faculty and then K-12 teachers. So I've got a lot of experience in faculty development. So I'm not sure what all you want to know about me, but what questions do you have for me, or what would you like to know?
Anyone, start us off. All right, that's my cue. So Morgan, just maybe at first just tell us why you're interested in OTC, why you're interested in this position.
So I'm interested in this position specifically because I have a passion for faculty development. As I said, when I started teaching, I didn't have any specific training in how to teach, and there's only so far you can go without specific training. You can be caring and compassionate about students, and you can meet them where they're at, but if you don't have any training, you can't really go so far. So I am especially passionate about teaching or faculty development because of my own experiences as a faculty member without having professional development support. So, and I mean, this position is great because it specifically is tailored to a faculty developer. And so I'd be interested in creating a culture for teaching and learning, and then designing and facilitating specific professional development programs across campus.
That's great. What makes you interested in it at OTC? I mean, you said you've been here since '06 in Springfield, so what's your knowledge of this institution and community college?
And then I've also taught at OTC as well.
Right, that's right.
So I think OTC provides a really important niche for this community, and I've worked at lots of different types of institutions. I've worked at regional institutions, R1 institutions, and liberal arts institutions, and community colleges, and OTC specifically provides a need for this community that other institutions in the region do not, especially in terms of workforce development, career readiness, training people for specific jobs, helping people move from maybe an associate's to a bachelor's degree if that's what they want. So I think OTC is a great place for this particular community in terms of helping people find what career they need, or and then also helping the economy of the community as well.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? I don't want to share myself.
No, what is your vision? We talked about the faculty development, but obviously a big component is the online.
Right.
So what is your vision for online, or your thoughts on online? Obviously retention is a huge issue that we face.
Well, I mean, I know already you all have a very dedicated and well-trained online staff. And so I would see my vision as part of this role is seeing what you already do and building off of that. So what can we do to help faculty teach online better or use technology better, and then maybe even train some of the staff to do some faculty development. I mean, you all probably already do that anyway. So seeing what you already do and building off of that. I certainly wouldn't want to come in and change and, you know, completely overhaul everything since you all already do great things. So that would be my vision. And I know that the person that trains faculty to teach online, I know that person does a great job already and has some great ideas. And so I would just be more of a resource, I think, and provide some oversight and leadership.
Somebody else?
Can you give me a specific example of a project you've completed in the last academic year where you've worked with faculty?
Sure. I'm currently designing and then facilitating a peer mentoring program for 2 new faculty over at Drury. They're 2 new science faculty, and Drury doesn't have a peer mentoring program at all, any sort of mentoring program. And we do have a new faculty orientation, but it's not personalized or tailored to what new faculty need. And when I went through it, I didn't find it helpful, and then most faculty that have gone through it did not find it helpful. So there was a need there. And so I just asked these 2 new faculty if they'd be interested in participating. They said yes. And not only am I facilitating it, but I'm also doing research on it, since research has shown that mentoring program works best when there's no power dynamic. And even though I've been at Drury longer, I'm still at the same level in terms of our position with these faculty. So I'm truly a peer. And so I've done research on it. So we've done interviews, we've done observations, we've done lesson planning sessions. They've ended up calling some of these sessions decompression sessions, where they just have the opportunity to come to talk to somebody that's safe. You know, it's IRB protected, and so I can't go off and tell anybody else. So, so I've recorded all of those, and so I'm currently going through that data to try to analyze it. I'm hoping to publish it. But we've also done peer observations of each other's teaching and then given feedback to each other. Because of my background in science education, I can give specific strategies and techniques to help them. They already are good teachers. They've already had some professional development, and so a lot of it has just been tweaking some things and giving them different ideas. So that's the extent of my project.
Very nice.
We do have a question from online participants. Do you have any innovative accomplishments in online teaching and learning that you would like to share?
I'm not sure how innovative it is because it's all in the literature, but whenever I design faculty development, I try to draw upon what research already says is effective. And studies have shown that faculty development for online teachers is effective whenever the faculty member acts like a student. And so you need to design faculty development where the faculty member is a student to experience it from the student perspective. It also needs to include specific instructional strategies and assessment techniques that are specific to online, but also can even be utilized better online. And then I also try to help specifically online teachers pre-assess student knowledge and build off of that. There are different strategies you can use within an LMS to help faculty do that. So like I said, I don't know if it's actually innovative since it's on the literature, but that's how I try to design online faculty development.
Okay, so as a faculty person,
Yes.
what is the best professional development hour you've ever received? And within that session, how did it differ from the typical types of presentations?
That is so hard because usually our workshops are not effective. I would say probably the best professional development hour I've experienced is how to design effective lesson plans, at least based on the literature. And my growth in this was way past that hour, but being introduced to it during that hour was mind-blowing. It was something that I've never experienced before, something I've never heard about, and it's a specific way to organize lesson plans, and it's related to the literature. Studies have shown it's highly effective. And so as I continued to learn more about it and grow, of course, I learned how to actually implement it, and I'm much more effective at it now. But that hour was like, boom. It was, so that was probably my best professional development moment as a faculty member.
Just piggyback off that question. See, you commented that you said the 1 hour workshop is not effective. Could you just kind of elaborate what makes that not effective, and then maybe contrast it with what is effective?
Well, the two go hand in hand. So studies have shown that faculty need personalized, tailored professional development that is individual to the faculty member. The one-stop workshop that you go in for an hour and then you leave, studies have shown that's not effective. And so professional development in higher education needs to include talking with individual faculty members about what they think they need, watching them teach, and thinking about, well, where are areas of improvement, giving suggestions to that faculty member about how you can build off of that, about what they already do, going back in and watching them try to implement a new strategy or assessment technique, reflecting with them after that, what went well, what didn't go well, what would you change, and then continuing that process. So very individualized, very tailored. And also not to expect big changes over a short period of time. We're all busy, and so I can't expect, especially if beliefs about teaching and learning aren't as sophisticated, you can't expect faculty member to start implementing sophisticated strategies if their beliefs aren't sophisticated. So even changing some beliefs and their ideas, that's going to be maybe a place to start, but you're going to have to expect small growth in that.
Somebody else? Question? Well, I'll throw one out there then.
Actually, Vivian.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
I was trying to formulate the wording, and it's probably going to come out not exactly right, but
That's okay.
So, coming from a place of a former science faculty member as well, I have found that I have to make sure that I am approaching situations and not always have exactly my science face forward right off the bat. Is that making any sense? There can be some perception sometimes that you're a science person, so you're very black and white versus what I do can't be measured. So what experiences, some of people say that. What experiences have you had dealing with folks who maybe aren't, because you say a lot of research and studies like that, that kind of sometimes make people, what experiences have you had working with folks who maybe aren't as research-based or black and white in their approach?
That's interesting you say that, because I, from a social scientist perspective, from an education perspective, I get the same thing from scientists. I mean, I'm a qualitative researcher when I think about doing education research, and so I get scientists say, well, you don't have a large enough sample for the population. How do we know what you say is reality? So I see both perspectives because I'm both a quantitative and qualitative researcher. Part of it is addressing the philosophy at which you view the world. And I mean, that's where you have to start. Most scientists have a post-positivist viewpoint that if you sample a large enough of the population, then that is reflective of the population. Most social scientists tend to either look at it from a constructivist perspective or a postmodernist perspective. And so if we can find that common ground of that perspective, then maybe we can address those issues. But it's like, if we don't find that common ground, it's like apples and oranges. And just like you said, I mean, a scientist and somebody that is not post-positivist, I mean, they're going to see the world very differently. So you have to find that common ground first. And I could talk about philosophy all day long, but I don't know how much we want to talk about that, so.
Anyone? Bueller? Well, so it sounds like you have a lot of experience in faculty development. You know, I think when online teaching first began, you had seated teachers who just kind of like plopped their seated class online and were like, look through these PowerPoints, read these articles, write these papers or whatever, take these tests. So that's changed, developed a lot. How have you seen it change? And maybe can you talk about maybe what makes a good online teacher versus, and how maybe juxtapose that to a seated classroom teacher?
I don't know. I feel like the two are pretty similar, or they should be. How people learn is relatively universal. We know that from the literature. And so part of it may be strategies that we use online versus seated, which ones are appropriate, which ones are doable online versus seated. But overall, yeah, students still need, you still need to assess student prior knowledge and build off of that. You still need to allow students to explore whatever area, whatever concept. You still need to allow students to apply that knowledge to new situations. You need to provide formative assessment opportunities throughout the learning process and build off of that. You need to provide actionable learning outcomes, and then those outcomes need to relate to the summative assessments that you use to assess those. And so all of that is relatable to online, just like it is in seating. Like I said, some of the strategies may just be a little bit different. So for example, in a seated classroom, you might pre-assess students with doing whiteboarding activities, or, I mean, there's so many things, concept cartoons, KWL charts. I mean, there's so many things you can do, but in an online environment, that may not be appropriate. Yeah. So you just have to find appropriate pre-assessment strategies that you can use online. Same thing with activities. You can still do role-playing activities online. You just may have to use the technology a little bit differently, rather than doing a role-playing activity in the actual classroom.
Sure.
Discussions may also be a little bit different, but I mean, studies show that talking to people and having a collaborative classroom environment is effective for students. So figuring out ways to make that effective online would be part of that.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, for sure.
Okay.
Basically what you're saying is it's the same, it's really at the tactical level. It's not, it's you want to get the same thing, the same student outcomes. It's just the tactics that you could do when you're looking at the eye and have them in a big group versus what you do online are just the difference.
There are costs and benefits to doing things seated versus online versus using open access technologies versus using the technology within the LMS. And so a lot of the strategies that maybe online instructors do solely could be related to what seated instructors do. So for example, if you wanted your online students to apply what they've learned to a community problem, you might have your online students go out and work with the local community. You could have your seated students do that as well.
Sure.
And vice versa.
Thank you. Somebody else? Questions?
How do you plan to, for lack of a better term, recruit those instructors who may not realize they need the help that they need, or, and you just take it from there?
Okay. Well, I do think, and I've said this already, so I don't know how feasible this is, but I do think some external motivation is needed, even so far as having lunch and learns, and we provide lunch. You know, just something small like that. But part of it may also be talking to department chairs first to see where the needs are. And, you know, like I've said, we can't expect faculty to make big changes. And so I wouldn't want to come in and force somebody to do something that they're not ready to do. So in the literature, we call people that first use teaching and learning centers early adopters. And so probably what I would do is work with those early adopters and help them go out and influence their immediate circle. The more that they talk to their peers about the resources and the strategies that they've gained, the more other people will begin to use it and see that. Might also think about incorporating maybe journal clubs or book clubs or something like that, and having discussions together with some of those faculty that may be a little hesitant about using some of the resources, and just talking about what's working in your classroom, what's not working, what can we do to help with that. So being more of a resource rather than a dictator.
Somebody else? Well, go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, use wait time.
What's that? Oh, let them, oh.
Yeah, that's a strategy. You gotta stay in here for a few seconds.
Oh, okay. See, I don't like silence.
Oh, you gotta be comfortable with silence.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh.
But Stephanie has.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So a large percent of our faculty are adjuncts. I mean, somewhere between 60 to 70% total, and there are some departments that are 100% adjuncts. So what do you think is, or what is your plan, I guess, for addressing those faculty who have jobs 8 to 5 during the day, or who aren't even here if they're online?
Right. Well, we could provide online professional development, certainly. And I could also meet with the chairs of that department to see where maybe the strengths and weaknesses or issues that may need to be addressed for those adjunct faculty. Maybe there are some universal issues across the entire adjunct population, or maybe there are some pockets that we could address. For those adjuncts that are in town, we might offer some professional development opportunities outside of their normal schedule, even weekdays or holidays. I would argue we'd have to offer some incentive though. No offense, but when I was a full-time instructor here, and things may have changed, but when I was a full-time instructor here, the adjunct faculty did not receive a whole lot of support. And part of my job was to help them navigate some of the content, but they didn't receive a whole lot of support, right? And so I think that we need to provide the resources and support they need to utilize a teaching and learning center or use those resources. So that may be financial incentives. I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, we have to let them know that they are important, they're needed, they're a valuable part of this community, and whether we do that with money or not, I don't know, but we need to let them know that they're valued.
I'm listening. So you're a good teacher. I'm listening.
You're still talking.
Wait time. It's the silence thing. Well, this may be a softball, but what just sort of overall, like what are the qualities that make an effective teacher, whether it's in the online or the student space?
I think the major thing is that you're student-centered. So using strategies and techniques that are student-centered. So I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's all in the literature, so I'm just repeating what's in the literature. So building off of student prior knowledge. So pre-assessing what students already know and tailoring your instruction to that. Allowing students to explore the concepts before explaining it. So allowing students to get the opportunity to see a demonstration or use manipulatives or watch a video or read the literature and talk to their peers about it. And then having them explain to you what the content is rather than the other way around. So having them get into discussion groups and talk about what they learned from their explorations. And so you as the teacher would be more of a coach or a facilitator and a listener rather than the authority that provides the content. Giving students the opportunity to apply that content to new situations. So if, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. So I teach anatomy, so that's the first thing that comes in my head. So if we allow students to maybe explore a cow eye, sorry for all of you non-science people, but I give them a cow eye and they start exploring it and cutting up into it and realize, well, this part does this. Oh yeah, I remember from this, from high school, we did this. And then having them explain what some of those parts are, maybe what some of those functions are. And then applying that to a new situation, like a case study or or something like that, and then giving them a summative assessment that actually relates to the learning goal rather than just a quiz or a test. Those are strategies that studies have shown make an effective teacher.
You got a question down there?
If you were chosen as Dean of Online and Faculty Development here at DC, what do you feel your first step or steps will be where you will be?
Part of it will be what we already do here, especially with OTC Online and seeing what you already do in terms of faculty development and how you help faculty design your LMS and your courses. And then I'd also want to talk to the department chairs to see what faculty already do in their seated classrooms. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I wouldn't want to come in here and make major changes because I know that there are some highly effective teachers here already. So seeing what people already do and building off of that would probably be my first key. And then we've talked a little bit with OTC Online and trying to get the word out that they do more than just online. So helping faculty realize that that's a very valuable resource that they can go to even if they don't teach online. So that would probably be my first step.
Since this is a dean position, I'd like to hear a little bit about your management style and your leadership philosophy.
Sure. From a leadership perspective, I'm definitely not a micromanager. I assume that people are hired because they can do their jobs, and I would want to give people the room to do their jobs effectively. I think I'm more of a democratic leader where I want to work collaboratively with my team and get their ideas before making any major decisions. I think we all have different perspectives and we all have different experiences, and we can all provide good ideas to any issues that need to be solved. I certainly don't think I have all the answers. I have the same philosophy as a teacher. My students come in with all of their ideas and experiences, and I don't know everything, so we need to work collaboratively. I do think, though, there's a fine line between being a leader and making a decision on behalf of my entire team versus bringing that issue to the team. And whereas I understand there's that line, I don't have as much experience making that decision. So that's something I would have to work on, trying to decide what decisions can I make, what problems can I solve on behalf of my entire team without bothering them with it, without bogging them down, versus what issues do I need to bring to the team to help solve the issue.
Piggybacking on that, how do you handle conflict management within the team?
Well, first of all, I want to understand what their perspective is and what their issues are. There's probably a specific reason why there's a conflict, and understanding that specific reason is key to understanding that conflict. So part of it may be talking with individuals, trying to understand what their issues are, what their problems are, and then maybe bringing the two people that are in conflict or the group of people that are in conflict together to talk about it. I'm kind of under the philosophy that we just talk about it. We can resolve it. If we have effective communication skills, then we can solve problems together. Also recognizing that everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. And as a leader, I think it would be my responsibility to help people not only develop those strengths, but put them into situations where they can utilize those strengths. So maybe their issue is that they don't feel needed or they feel underutilized. Well, let's figure out how you can feel needed and utilized and then put them to that task.
Is that long enough?
No.
No, gosh. Well, does anyone have a question? All right, I've kind of run through. Yeah, I know.
Can I ask questions?
Sure.
Okay.
You may.
From a faculty perspective, what do you all think you will need from a faculty developer? And if you want to turn and talk to your partner, then we can have a discussion. That's strategy too.
close our ears if we don't. I was gonna say, I'll leave.
I know one thing that we maybe think about a lot and struggle with is we have a very broad range of incoming faculty. So if someone is a new faculty member, let's say just new full-time faculty, we could be dealing with someone who has been an adjunct here for a long time, who would just be picking up extra hours, maybe different preps and committee work. We could be dealing with someone who just literally was out in the field working and has never formally taught before, ever. And in a couple weeks, we'll have a room full of high schoolers and power tools.
Yeah.
So I think that the breadth of the types of folks who are coming in is something that we struggle is probably a strong word, but struggle with. There's a like any community college classroom, there's a lot of different people coming in to join you.
I think with any classroom, it's important to meet the needs of all of your learners. And in this case, the learners are going to be faculty members learning how to teach. So I think part of something that maybe could be addressing that is a peer mentoring program for people that have been here for a long period of time and maybe have gone through some professional development, hooking up with new incoming instructors. And maybe that might also help with the adjuncts as well. So maybe developing a mentoring program might help with that.
And just to, just to piggyback off Vivian, because I was kind of thinking the same thing and I couldn't really think of how to say that. But I mean, we've got people that have no idea how to map course objectives to what they do in class.
Yeah.
And don't know how to lesson plan, and then think that only doing discussions in online classes is okay.
Yeah.
So I think the breadth, but then we have people who are doing totally awesome things.
Right.
So I think the breadth is
Well, I
quite
think
large.
the reason, that's the reason why I think the first thing we need to do is survey maybe department chairs or people that work with faculty and see what we already do and then struggles that we have. So like mapping objectives to assessments, that could be a whole workshop for people that need that. Gaining new student-centered tools for online teaching, that could be a whole workshop. So just talking to people and seeing what our strengths and things that we need to work on, I think would be a good starting point.
Something you said made me think of another question. Do you think professional development or faculty development looks different for new incoming faculty and faculty that have been here for a long time?
I think it really depends on the training, but also the beliefs about teaching and learning that those faculty members have. Some faculty may have gone to graduate school and have got a really good comprehensive training in pedagogy. That's usually not the norm, but it does happen. So new faculty coming in might actually have a more sophisticated beliefs about teaching and learning than somebody that's been teaching a long time. So so not necessarily, I would say. I think we would have to start from where they're at, not where they came from, I guess. Some people that have been teaching for many years still have a very naive view of teaching and learning. That's going to look very differently than somebody that's just out of graduate school but has had training. So I would say that variable is not necessarily the only variable we should consider. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. You look like you're thinking, so.
I am.
Sorry.
You're fine. You've got plenty of time. Keep asking questions.
So do you have any experience with working with some of our like allied health programs, nursing, some of our tech ed programs, things like welding, fire science, and fire science guys are here. So talk about how you visualize, because I love that you talk about science. I love it. But
For other disciplines.
For other disciplines as well.
Yeah. Well, certainly with allied health, I mean, teaching anatomy and physiology, I've got kind of a direct relationship with some of the allied health people. But I would want to continue that relationship to see what our prospective nurses or allied health professionals need when they come in. And then maybe we can help some of those people that teach AMP develop some of those things. For other programs, I would want to talk to the faculty or the chairs to see what is needed for that particular career, and then help them develop strategies to meet those needs. I mean, problem solving in general is needed for all disciplines, but that's going to look like depending on the discipline, look differently depending on the discipline. So developing strategies for different disciplines to help students solve problems, I think would be a great way to start. And then students need different skills depending on the discipline, but there are also different strategies to meet those skills. So for example, if we've got students that need to develop conflict resolution or leadership skills, like I said, role playing might be a great strategy for that. But for allied health, pre-allied health students, applying content to clinical situations like via case studies would be a way to solve those problems. Or we could implement problem-based learning into the classroom like med schools are doing now in medical education. So I would just say, like I said, in general, how people learn is universal, but how those strategies are implemented across different disciplines might be different. So talking to chairs or other leaders within the institution to see what skills those people need would be a good starting point.
We have another question from online. Do you think that we have enough instructional designers and support staff for the number of courses that we offer? I'm
not sure. I mean, OTC Online, how do you feel? I mean, I know if the person in this role would have a very difficult time coming in and trying to do it all. So I'll start by saying that. If you're looking for somebody to lead this culture of teaching and learning, develop workshops, develop retreats, lead and discuss lunch and learns or brown bag lunches or do summer intensive programs, and then also do individualized coaching, that's a lot. And then also having people that train faculty to teach online, help faculty develop their course content and their learning management system, that's a lot. So, I mean, I would assume probably not. That's kind of a yes and no question, so I could have just said no. But I mean, if we want to develop teaching and learning at this institution, then I think the resources need to be available to implement that.
We have another question from online. Donna would be interested in knowing how you feel about having instructors as fully online or long distance instructors. Do they need to be within driving distance of campus?
I don't think so. I think one of the benefits of having online is that we can have lots of different experts. Our students can then have access to those experts. We may, I don't know off the top of my head, maybe we don't have any Middle Eastern studies experts in Springfield, Missouri, but they could be at different institutions or different parts of the country or even in different parts of the world. But being able to utilize those experts, I think, is what would be best for students. However, we need to also help faculty understand how to connect with those students if the students can never meet with them face to face. And that's true for students or faculty that are in the Springfield area versus faculty that aren't. So maybe helping faculty understand how to hold some face to face, like office hours using Zoom or Skype or something like that.
You define critical thinking and how you measure it.
Oh, Lord. I'm thinking. Yeah, I know. I would say critical thinking is using tools, content, skills to apply it to a relevant situation. And that may be a real world situation, that may be a situation that you encounter in the workforce, but being able to solve problems, like I said, using skills, techniques, content, whatever, in a real world situation. How I would measure that? It really depends on the discipline and what we're interested in students getting out of that activity. For example, I'm coming from a science background, but let's say that we want our students to be able to design a fair scientific investigation. Let's say that we want all of our biology students to come in and be able to design an investigation, because that's what scientists do. And so I would assess them on their ability to design a hypothesis, come up with variables, design a fair test, use evidence to back up their claims, communicate those results and those conclusions. So I think it really depends on the discipline and what your goals would be, is how I would assess it. Certainly it could be more than a test or an exam. For this particular scenario, I might assess it using their written scientific investigation report.
I was interested, you mentioned that you had done decompression.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of faculty development maybe turns into that unintentionally. Do you think that's something that should be formalized?
So studies have shown that faculty need both formal and informal mentoring. A lot of mentoring, as you all know, is more organic and spontaneous, and it really depends on who you connect with personally, and a lot of it is personality traits. The decompression sessions, though, boy, I would be hesitant to make that formal, especially if it doesn't include a peer. As you all know, talking to somebody that's in an authority position about their frustrations or the venting sessions, that can be a little dangerous, or depending on the politics of the situation. So I would say if we develop a peer mentoring program that is formal in the sense that we've got specific mentors to help new faculty coming in, and then we can pair those mentors depending on their personality traits, and then I don't know how we would swear those people to secrecy, but make it so that we know it's a safe space, then that would be the more informal part. So I would say both. That was a really long answer to your question, but I would say we needed both, but we'd have to be very careful in how we structure it.
Well, I was thinking more, I guess the confidentiality of it is certainly important.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more just the stress, really, the self-care part of it.
No, I agree.
Is that a part of the faculty development?
Yes, I believe so. Having somebody you can trust, somebody you can vent to, somebody you can go to. But I think, and maybe this will answer your question, maybe formalizing that mentoring program would be an important piece so that faculty would know who to go to. Yes. And maybe we could do some mental health sessions and and not just for faculty, but staff as well.
Do you have other questions?
Well, I just go back to what would you all like to see, but you didn't answer. In terms of,
I was just going to say, just putting my adjunct hat on.
yes.
I think one thing that just personally, I would find interesting is, we have a new faculty institute, but something like something other than a new faculty. You've been here, let's say old, let's say it that way. But something that has we have a leadership OTC program. It's not required, but if you opt in, there are requirements once you volunteer to be a part of the program, and it's a sustained program with goals and objectives that take you from point A to point B over the course of the 9-month year. So having something that for seasoned faculty who just want to, everything's going fine, there's no really discernible problems, but I just want to get better, and I don't exactly know what that looks like.
No, I think that's a great idea.
But something it's contextual, that there's a problem, or there's something specific I want to work on.
Yep.
That I can have a sustained track, if you will, from August through May.
Yep.
That takes me and maybe pairing me up with somebody so that at the end I have a goal. It's not just a random
Random workshop or whatever.
something for me that I can results. I don't know if there'd be other interest for it, but just.
I think that's a great idea. And I've done something similar. It was a summer intensive, and faculty, there were incentives to apply and then be involved. And so it was an intensive program, but then throughout the year, the faculty developers would follow those people in the program and watch them teach, see how they would implement some strategies, and then talk with them one-on-one about problems that they have. But I like your idea better of doing it throughout the entire year. And maybe that can be also a decompression session type thing too, just a time to get together and talk about issues you're having or something like that in a safe space. But I really like that idea, both for part-time instructors and full-time instructors.
Okay, question from the online audience again. Donna would like to know, do you see developing faculty resources that are available for faculty to access 24/7, 365?
Sure. I mean, we've got a great online staff already, and so we could develop maybe a folder within the learning management system, and we could constantly update it with new strategies or techniques, or we could provide videos, things that are always accessible. Yeah. John?
So I'm going to answer your question. Since I was on the initial task force for this position, there's several of us in here. So if I misspeak, please correct me. We initially were going to survey the faculty.
Yep.
Exactly what you asked. What do you need? And we decided not to go that way on purpose because we have a lot of resistant faculty. And we thought anyway that we knew what some of those answers were going to be.
Can you provide me some examples?
Well, so for example, and you've taught here before, and you know this from your teaching experience at Jury Assured, is that, when we have professional development, it's the same people that show up.
Yep.
It's kind of like your A students show up to tutoring sessions. It's not the people that need to show up to your tutoring sessions, it's your better students.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have interested faculty that show up at professional development.
Right.
The ones that probably need it don't go to professional development.
Right.
And so we were anticipating that's who we would hear from.
I see.
And so we decided not to go that way. We purposely, as we went through it, it was a long process. We had a lot of healthy discussions, and we didn't want to give too much direction to this position because we wanted somebody to come in and kind of evaluate where we're at.
Yep.
And then go their direction. We didn't want to, pigeonhole the position. So you think I spoke okay? Yeah.
Is that just a comment or a question?
No, that's the answer.
Answer
to your
my question.
About,
Okay.
Why we left it pretty vague. That's why we left it pretty vague.
But I would also assume that the people that are here are probably the ones that are really interested in teaching and learning, maybe. And so you may already have ideas about what you would like to work on, or what you think your faculty, if you're a chair, need to work on. So that was kind of where I was coming from asking that question. So John, as a department chair.
Well, no, I have very specific things.
Yeah.
That I want. And I think the department chairs are, I think that's a great place to start.
Okay.
I mean, we pretty much know who our faculty are and who are going to be problem faculty and who will get on board, and then, and we, as you said, we all have particular needs. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things I really like you said, but I'm sure there's some commonalities.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I mean, writing accessible objectives is probably huge across disciplines, and then finding assessments that match those objectives. I mean, that's a really common issue.
And a lot of us are moving from course assessment to program assessment, and that's a big thing too, because there may be some chairs that aren't on board with that, and so that's why we left that thing.
And I can't remember if I've already talked to people already, so I can't remember if I've said this here, but kind of building off of that, maybe even having some chair-specific professional development about how to manage your department. I mean, there's literature on how to be an effective department chair. So even providing some professional development related to that too would be interesting. Are there any staff, like just staff people here? Yeah. So what are some things you would like to see from a staff perspective? Like professional development opportunities? Mental illness might be one thing. Stress management.
I was gonna save it for later, but I'll go ahead and ask it now.
Okay.
So we would be on your team. So we do a lot of faculty development, working one-on-one with faculty, working with departments, working with programs.
Fantastic.
So we do a lot of development.
Yeah.
One thing as a team we talked about is, so if we're doing all of the developing, how do we continue to be developed as professionals and experts in our field as well? So what is something that, some way you will kind of build in that development for us as a team?
I'm glad you asked, because as I said earlier, if this position is expected to create a culture of teaching and learning and do all the professional development opportunities, I mean, that's insane for one person to do. So I'm really glad to hear you all already do it and there would already be people in place. And so, I mean, I was trained by a teacher educator who ended up being a teacher educator, if that makes sense. So she's now training people how to teach teachers. And so now I think my role, or the role in this position, might be how do we help faculty developers become better faculty developers? And so, I mean, part of it is still universal. And so I might, we might read some literature on what makes effective faculty development, talk about if you've implemented some of this, what works, what doesn't work, what are some barriers that you've encountered as faculty developers and how might we breach those barriers. We might even do some role-playing activities where you've got maybe a faculty that is resistant to change. How would we as a faculty developer address those issues? And so I think even having some training workshops for the faculty developers would be maybe part of this position. And utilizing our education resources.
They're here.
They're here. I think education departments in general, not just at this institution, but across institutions, are underutilized for their expertise. So I think we need to also utilize our education experts, if you're willing.
We're getting close. Anybody else? Question?
Literature is very clear on this, that the true judge of a person's character, what type of movies they watch. So what's your favorite music? What's your favorite?
Oh, dang.
Thank you, Randy.
I will just, I don't even know how to start out. I'm weird, so we'll just go with that. I'm pretty, I don't know, weird is just the best word for me. So maybe Top Gun is my favorite movie, and I got to explain why. It came out, I don't.
Explanation needed.
No explanation needed. Okay. It made me want to be a fighter pilot when I was little, because that movie came out around the time I was born. Sorry, I'm saying how old I am, but I know you're groaning. And then I heard, I don't remember how old I was, but I heard that women can't sustain the G-forces that the typical fighter pilot. I don't think that's true, but that just totally devastated me. I couldn't become a fighter pilot. So Top Gun. My go-to, well, okay, I'll preface this. I dance, and so I appreciate all types of music, everything from country to classic. But my go-to is probably hard rock and alternative rock. I don't know what that says about me. Remember, I'm weird. But I mean, since I dance, I listen to pop, hip hop, country, rock,
All right.
I like those questions.
On that note, everybody join me